As someone very interested in the way that media approaches violent video games, I couldn't ignore this article from Christian Today. It is entitled, "How to Enjoy Violent Video Games Without Getting Addicted." It's quite odd because I wasn't aware that was a real concern, let alone something you'd need a how-to guide to avoid happening to you. Rather conveniently, I didn't have to waste any time researching this as the article destroys its own title. About halfway through it just flat out says, games are not clinically addictive, but the language of addiction can be useful in describing the behavior of children. The language of addiction is also really useful for making an alarmist, moralistic, clickbaity title. What a coincidence. The article proceeds to say that understanding, presence, and engagement with video games changes their status in the home from an alien, sometimes violent, addictive experience to being another part of life we enjoy together and find God active in. So sometimes violent. They're talking about kids wanting to play video games instead of doing other stuff. That is a far cry from what the title presented this as. This sort of thing is obviously bad. It's an alarmist bit of clickbait to make you worried that you can get addicted to violent games, in particular violent games, and then it pedals back in the article and becomes something completely different. I don't really need to say anything else about the big problem there. However, this article has some much more interesting aspects to it. I honestly had a bit of deja vu reading this. It is so similar to progressive news outlets. The most important thing to understand is that video games are about something as well as being entertainment. Even those games that don't have a spoken narrative tell players a story about the world. So games always inform you about the world. Is that ringing any bells for you? Because it certainly is for me. Try this part on for size. But let's be honest about this. At the same time, many video games are violent and depict sex and gender in juvenile ways. Video games are a new medium that is still maturing. Again, it's this narrative that video games need to move out of looking at certain subjects. Where have we heard that before? And it's extremely clear that by maturity, they do not mean becoming a mature art form. They mean becoming more adult, I guess, more responsible, as if art becomes more mature when it aligns with what you think art should be, rather than being expression. Alright, here is the chain of reasoning that I am sure is going to get you. If the parallels are not obvious by now, they will be. Christians are particularly well placed to find value and meaning in games that also contain problematic violence. After all, we have been doing it with the Bible for centuries. We interpret the violent parts of our faith text rather than suggest that they shouldn't be included. We appreciate the violence is problematic, but equally that it is part of the whole story. Guess what, guys? You can enjoy problematic things as long as you recognize the problematic elements. But you do have to recognize them. As defined by us, of course. Games are different texts to the Bible, but they throw up some similar problems. They too need to be interpreted to be made sense of. Note, they need to be interpreted like this. Playing games with our interpretive eyes open and drawing on the historical and linguistic tools we apply to the biblical text enables Christians to champion the good in games, rather than reach for knee-jerk reactions and easy headlines. Well, you might want to look at what title this piece has been given. But besides that, there's something you might want to take a look at. There is a horseshoe effect sort of thing going on here, the antithesis of this sort of publication, the actively anti-tradition, quote-unquote, progressives. This little group of people have their very own set of interpretive eyes, and they seem to be all over the press nowadays. It's just that their little toolkit is slightly more new. In spite of that difference, the assertion of authority and claim to proper interpretation of the subjective still grates my ears just the same. But, as usual, that's just another one of my harmful opinions. Alright guys, I have a bit of fun for you. Rewrite this little paragraph and post it as a comment. Change the words around. Make it sound like something Polygon or Kotaku or Destructoid would have written.